The old lighthouse stood sentinel on a jagged, wind-battered coast, its stone walls scarred by decades of salt and tempest. Inside, a quiet man named Elias moved with the practice's grace of ritual, his life measured by the sweeping arc of the lamp above. For 30 years, this solitary beacon had been his world, a world of ticking mechanisms, polished brass, and the relentless, murmuring breath of the ocean. Elias was not a man of grand gestures or booming words. His days were a precise tapestry woven from duty, checking the fuel lines, cleaning the lens until it gleamed like a captured star, meticulously logging weather patterns, and ensuring the complex gears turned without fault. He felt himself a forgotten relic, much like the lighthouse itself, in an age where satellites whispered across the sky and navigation seemed an effortless flick of a screen. His purpose, he often mused, was fading, a solitary guardian of a world that no longer needed his light quite so desperately. Yet, as the years folded into one another, Elias began to find new rhythms beyond the call of the lamp. The ocean, in its generosity and its fury, was a constant giver and taker. After particularly violent storms, the tides would retreat, leaving behind more than just seaweed and shells. Elias would walk the desolate stretches of beach, his gaze trained on the detritus of the deep. He wasn't seeking treasure, but rather, the small, forgotten whispers of humanity. He found messages in bottles, corked tightly against the brine, their paper yellowed and brittle. Some were childish scrawls, others heartfelt pleas, and a few, faded notes of longing or love. He found fragments of ships, smooth pieces of wood that once knew the roar of sails, now polished by the ceaseless tumble of waves. He even discovered peculiar items, a single, ornate brass button, a doll's porcelain head with one eye missing, a collection of unusually vibrant pebbles. Elias didn't just collect them, he became their silent archivist. In a small, dust-free room at the base of the lighthouse, he arranged his finds with a reverence usually reserved for museum pieces. The messages, carefully unrolled, were catalogued in a worn leather-bound book, their impossible journeys meticulously noted. The fragments of wood were smoothed and oiled, their grain brought back to life. He even nursed small, stranded sea creatures, tiny crabs, disoriented jellyfish, back to the safety of deeper waters, feeling a fleeting kinship with these lost voyagers. His routine expanded. The rhythm of cleaning the lens was now interspersed with the quiet click of a restored brass button, the soft rustle of aged paper, the gentle release of a creature back to its realm. He found a quiet satisfaction in these acts of preservation, a sense of purpose that transcended the mechanical sweep of the light. He was not just preventing ships from crashing, he was tending to the stories that the sea relentlessly consumed and sometimes, just sometimes, released. One blustery autumn night, a storm of unprecedented ferocity descended. The wind howled like a banshee, tearing at the ancient stones of the lighthouse, and the waves crashed against the cliffs with explosive force. Elias, ever vigilant, ensured the light burned bright, a defiant star against the churning blackness. As the first pale light of dawn crept across the tumultuous horizon, revealing a landscape utterly transformed, Elias ventured out onto the beach. The sand was rearranged, the rocks newly exposed. And there, nestled amidst a tangle of kelp, he saw it. It was a small, intricately carved wooden bird, no larger than his thumb. Its wings were outstretched as if in eternal flight, and its tiny eye was a bead of dark polished stone. It felt impossibly delicate in his calloused hand, yet it had survived the maelstrom. Back in his quiet room, under the steady glow of his reading lamp, Elias cleaned it. As the grime of the sea fell away, he saw an almost imperceptible, faded inscription on its base. It was a single, stylized initial, M. Weeks later, a small fishing vessel, driven off course by the residual currents of the storm, sought refuge in the tiny cove near Elias's lighthouse. The lone fisherman, a man named Marcus, was weary and weathered, but his eyes held a flicker of curiosity as he spotted Elias's collection. He spoke of his family's long history on the coast, of heirlooms lost to the sea generations ago. And then, he mentioned a story his grandmother told him, of a small, wooden bird, part of a pair, carved by her own father for his twin daughters, lost in a storm nearly a century past. The other bird, he explained, had his grandmother's initial, A. Elias, with a tremor in his hand, carefully brought out the tiny wooden bird. Marcus gasped, his eyes wide with disbelief and a deep, unexpected emotion. The initial, M, was for his great-aunt, who had been lost at sea as a child, along with her cherished toy. The family had always kept the other bird, a silent testament to a lost twin. There were no grand pronouncements, no media fanfare. Elias simply handed the tiny bird to Marcus, a silent offering from the deep. Marcus, tears welling in his eyes, grasped it like a precious jewel, a tangible link to a story he had only ever heard as a myth. He spoke of the solace this small piece of history would bring to his aging grandmother, a piece of her past unexpectedly returned by the tireless ocean. As Marcus sailed away, the morning sun glinting off the water, Elias stood on the cliffs, the wind whipping at his hair. The light above swept its familiar arc, but now, its purpose felt profoundly different. He wasn't just guiding ships across the dark waters, he was tending to the invisible currents of human connection, of memory, of loss, and of astonishing, quiet rediscovery. His small acts, unseen by most, were like the threads of a cosmic loom, weaving forgotten tales back into the tapestry of the living world. His life, once seemingly a solitary vigil, was now profoundly intertwined with the vast, mysterious narrative of the sea, a silent weaver of light and longing, of that which was lost, and miraculously, found again.